The laughter echoed across the parking lot on a bright summer morning as dozens of employees gathered outside the glass headquarters of one of the city's fastest-growing companies. Standing near the entrance was a wealthy CEO dressed in an expensive tailored suit, pointing toward a faded, rust-covered 1967 Mustang that looked like it had barely survived the last 50 years. The car's paint was peeling. One headlight was cracked. The chrome bumper was stained with rust. The engine coughed every time it started. And beside that Mustang stood a single father whose quiet dignity would soon teach an entire city a lesson no amount of money could buy. Before we begin, if you believe kindness matters more than wealth and that everyone deserves a second chance, please like this video, comment below where you're watching from, share this story with someone who needs inspiration, and subscribe to Single Dad Empire for more emotional and uplifting stories. The father was named Nolan Mercer. At 38 years old, Nolan had lived through more hardship than most people experience in a lifetime. 5 years earlier, he had lost his wife, Marissa, after a sudden illness that turned his entire world upside down. Left alone to raise his young son, Jasper, Nolan worked every possible job he could find. During the day, he repaired appliances. At night, he delivered packages. On weekends, he cleaned office buildings. Life became a constant cycle of sacrifice. Every dollar he earned went toward rent, groceries, school supplies, and keeping the lights on. The only valuable thing he still owned was the old 1967 Mustang sitting in his driveway. To everyone else, it looked like junk. To Nolan, it was priceless. The Mustang had belonged to his late father, a mechanic who spent years restoring it before passing it down to his son. Nolan's father had always dreamed of entering the city's annual Heritage Auto Festival, a prestigious event where classic cars from across the state competed for recognition. But he had died before that dream could come true. For years, Nolan promised himself he would someday finish what his father started. Unfortunately, life kept getting in the way. Medical bills. Funeral costs. Raising Jasper. Unexpected emergencies. Every time Nolan saved a little money, something happened that forced him to spend it. Yet the dream never disappeared. Every evening after work, while most people rested, Nolan spent an hour in his garage. Sometimes he cleaned parts. Sometimes he repaired wiring. Sometimes he simply sat inside the car and remembered the days when his father taught him how engines worked. Meanwhile, across town, billionaire CEO Grant Holloway lived a completely different life. Grant owned luxury cars worth millions of dollars. He appeared on magazine covers and business podcasts. People admired his success and wealth. But over the years, success had changed him. He had begun measuring people's worth by what they owned. One afternoon, Nolan arrived at a corporate office building for a repair job. His Mustang sputtered into the executive parking lot. Several employees turned to look. Grant happened to be exiting the building at the exact moment Nolan parked. The CEO stared at the worn-out vehicle before smirking. The crowd around him laughed as he made a cruel remark about the car belonging in a junkyard instead of a parking lot. Some employees chuckled. Others looked uncomfortable. Nolan heard every word. The comments stung deeply. But he didn't respond. He simply grabbed his toolbox and walked into the building. Years of hardship had taught him something important. Not every insult deserves an answer. Sometimes silence speaks louder. Still, that night, the humiliation followed him home. As Nolan sat alone in the garage, staring at the Mustang beneath a single hanging light bulb, he felt something shift inside him. For years he had postponed his dream. For years he had waited for the perfect moment. Maybe that moment would never come. Maybe he simply needed to begin. The next morning, Nolan made a decision. He would enter the Heritage Auto Festival 30 days later. Even if it seemed impossible. Even if nobody believed he could do it. Even if he failed. The challenge was enormous. The engine needed rebuilding. The transmission required repairs. The interior was worn and damaged. The body needed extensive restoration. Most people would have given up. But Nolan wasn't restoring a car. He was restoring a promise. Every day became a battle against time. Before sunrise, he worked on customer repairs. After work, he rushed home. Then came hours inside the garage. His hands became covered in grease. His muscles ached constantly. Many nights he worked until 2 in the morning. Jasper often sat nearby doing homework while watching his father. Over time, something beautiful happened. Neighbors began noticing. One elderly man donated rare replacement parts he had been storing for decades. A local paint specialist volunteered his services. A retired mechanic offered advice. Even strangers started helping after hearing Nolan's story. The project slowly transformed into something bigger than a car restoration. It became a symbol of community. A symbol of perseverance. A symbol of hope. Week after week, the Mustang changed. The rust disappeared. The chrome gleamed. The engine roared back to life. Fresh paint reflected sunlight like liquid glass. The old forgotten machine started looking like a masterpiece. Yet Nolan never shared his progress publicly. He wasn't interested in proving anyone wrong. He simply wanted to honor his father. Meanwhile, Grant Holloway forgot all about the encounter. His attention remained focused on business deals and luxury lifestyles. He had no idea what was happening in a small garage on the other side of town. As the festival approached, anticipation spread across the city. The Heritage Auto Festival was one of the largest community events of the year. Thousands attended. Local media covered it extensively. Car enthusiasts traveled long distances to participate. On the morning of the event, bright sunshine filled the city. Families gathered along downtown streets. Food vendors opened their booths. Music played through loudspeakers. Classic cars lined up for judging. Nolan arrived early. His hands trembled slightly as he guided the restored Mustang toward its display position. People immediately noticed. The car looked breathtaking. Deep metallic blue paint shimmered beneath the sunlight. Every chrome detail sparkled. The engine sounded powerful yet refined. Judges paused to admire the craftsmanship. Spectators gathered around. Photographers began taking pictures. Throughout the day, interest continued growing. Visitors weren't just impressed by the vehicle. They were moved by the story behind it. A widowed father. A promise to his late father. 30 days of relentless work. The story spread from person to person. Then something unexpected happened. A local journalist published an article about Nolan and the Mustang. Within hours, the article exploded across social media. Thousands shared it. People connected with the emotional journey. Comments poured in from across the country. Many saw reflections of their own struggles in Nolan's determination. Others admired his refusal to respond to humiliation with anger. By evening, the entire city seemed to know his story. Including Grant Holloway. The CEO first saw the article while scrolling through his phone. At first, he barely paid attention. Then he recognized the name. Then he recognized the car. Then he recognized himself. His stomach dropped. The article mentioned the public humiliation that had inspired Nolan to finally pursue his dream. Grant reread the story several times. For the first time in years, he felt ashamed. Not because people criticized him. Because he realized they were right. He had judged a man without knowing anything about him. He had mocked someone's struggle. He had mistaken wealth for value. The next day, the final award ceremony drew thousands of spectators. EXC.